Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Cornerblue, everybody. This is episode 20 during the bluest March there's ever been. Hi, I'm Andrés Rico and I'm here with Hugo Alvarado, and we're just going to digest what was the debut for the U23s against Canada today. How you doing, Hugo?
Good. Obviously a bit disappointed, but hopeful.
Definitely. I mean, going into this tournament, as we've mentioned during previous episodes, you try and keep your expectations as real as possible. Hugo Perez has been at the helm of this team for about 2.5 months, which is relatively a short amount of time considering the significance of a tournament like this. But he did have plenty of time within that time to get his casting going. And then on top of that, fortunately for La Solita, there were a few last-minute additions to the roster. You know, Hugo and Andrés was able to join the team after getting his paperwork set up, as well as Josh Perez. And then the other two players that were able to get their documents a little ahead of time. So going into this, you know that there was some fine-tuning to be done. But nonetheless, it's exciting to see what would actually happen on the pitch, because we hadn't had a time to actually see the team, or at least a starting 11. So what were your impressions, Hugo?
Obviously, I think like most of us, or at least me, I'm always hopeful. I'm always positive when it comes to these games. But I agree with you, Andres, that given that there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for friendly matches, I think there's always the big unknown, especially for players like our national team, where yes, it's a positive that in this current roster we have a lot of players who already play first division, but some of them are not really starters all the time. So having those friendly competitive matches always helps, to get the team ready as much as possible. But today we knew that technically this was our first real competitive game for this team. I think that there were some positives. I clearly saw that the team tries to play from the back, in an organized way as much as possible. That takes a lot of work to accomplish, and we saw some hiccups there, and in some occasions we almost got a score down again as a result of some mistakes trying to play from the back. But another positive thing that I saw is that this team always try to play an attack. It was a team that always try to propose attacking football, and that is also something that we don't see much of. Yes, we still lack, like the final punch up front, but the team is proposing an offensive game, and I think that was a positive aspect of this national team. Without going into individual players, we can probably touch a little bit on that later, but overall, obviously disappointed that we had those 5-7 minutes of lost concentration, and we scored on twice, and that was the game. But yes, I mean, overall, I think I saw a team that is trying to establish a playing style that looks different than what we've seen before, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, to add to that, I totally agree in the sense that we saw a pressing in the midfield that we don't really see that much, let's say, with other youth teams or even with the senior squad, where you saw a lot of recovery or interruption of the Canadian attack in the midfield. To me, it's not too common to see a defensive midfielder going one-on-one with an opponent, beating them physically and poking the ball away, and then we absorb the ball and then go on the attack. That happened several times throughout the match, and that was very refreshing to see that for periods of time that midfield was very strong in absorbing any type of attack from Canada. I think unfortunately we saw some of the same hiccups that the defense was going through, even in the friendly matches. At least some of the goals that I saw that they got scored on, and the one that came to mind was Gulli Peña's goal when Faz played them, where it just seemed like the ball froze and the team froze, and no one was able to put pressure on the ball, and Buchanan was just able to get up from his knees and score the
Yeah.
second goal. So that one I think was a little unfortunate, where it just seemed that, there was a lapse in terms of the team at that crucial moment. Also, I think the defense on the right side had issues in terms of speed. There were you could tell there were some jitters in terms of playing the ball out, especially on the right flank, and hopefully that gets corrected. Later on, it seemed that things settled down on that flank, but I was really worried that once that weakness showed in the first half, that they were going to exploit that the whole time. So we'll see if they're able to correct that, because I don't think we have as much speed on that right flank as we would want. And I saw that the defender was trying to do some one-on-one or get into one-on-one situations where, because of the lack of speed or accompaniment, we just lost the ball too much on that side. And there's no way that we can be losing the ball, on the defensive side of the field moving forward. So there's things like that, the good, the bad. I don't think there was any ugly in this match. I thought it was pretty interesting how number 9 Marquez, how we finally have a tall player playing in the 9 role, which is not that common for us, and he was playing the traditional 9. And usually we comment, right? Oh, Salvadorans are small, short, don't have a physical presence. But it was interesting to see him, pushing around the Canadian defenders flopping and getting calls. So it's like, when are we going to catch a break here? Finally, we have someone that is contesting, 50-50 balls in their box, in the air, winning them, but we just couldn't get, a player, a whistle in our advantage. But it was these little things that we don't get to see that often that were very refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. This team doesn't lack much presence as previous U23s. I mean, our center backs are big in this case. Actually, I think all 4 defenders today have good size, which is great. On occasion, some of them seem a little bit slow, but I think that, I think that's where we are trying to build on. Like, our game is trying to be built on from the back line up. Unfortunately, today, I'm not saying our defenders are bad, but unfortunately today, that seemed to be our weakness.
Yeah,
And
too many
yes,
mistakes on the way out. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's, again, I go back to the lack of preparation in the friendly matches, right? I mean, it is what it is now, but those friendly matches always helps. And the one of the biggest factors for me is that these players are not used to playing in big fields like the Jalisco, and it takes time to adjust to the spaces and the speed of the pitch. Obviously, the Jalisco has a very nice turf. They get it wet before the game. Um, so our players, I think, have to work harder just to cover all the spaces, because they're not used to playing like that, or under those conditions. I mean, we saw a few of our players with cramps at the end of the game. I do think it was hot. From what I heard, I think it was like 86 Fahrenheit, which is pretty hot for some of our players, or especially the ones coming from Europe. That's not, right now over there it's like snowing. Um, so so with that being said, I think that we are playing at a different stadium the next game on Monday, but I do think that the guys will have a little bit more of a sense of the timing and the speed of the game, with the in terms of the pitch, and I think that's going to help us. I'm very hopeful and looking forward to that game. I mean, we have to win. There's no other choice. But I think we're going to see a more confident team. I mean, I saw it even in the second half today. We had 10, 15 minutes where we were really playing really nicely. Very nice combinations, up front. So yeah, I mean, it was a first game. It was the first competitive match under Hugo Perez, and I think we saw some very interesting things.
Another interesting aspect too was just seeing little by little the association between players. You can see them getting to know each other because Josh Perez was inserted into the starting 11, as was Enrico Hernandez. And you see them in that process of getting to know their teammates. You saw some good triangulations, some good give and goes in the first half. But like you said, the speed of the pitch kind of influenced things because I noticed that sometimes they would make a touch that seemed a little bit too heavy that maybe, under other circumstances they would have been able to get to. But I noticed that a lot, that there were just some touches that seemed a little too heavy, and hopefully they'll make that adjustment as well. I really liked Enrico's game. What a great debut for him. Obviously, it would have been a lot better if some of those shots would have gone in, but you immediately saw the influence that he had on the team.
Yeah, I really I liked his game. I think that he showed where he comes from. He showed that he has that Dutch school of soccer, the Ajax. He was, he was a player who his accuracy on his passing was pretty high. He probably lost one or two balls max, but I was impressed by his timing of the game, how he knew when to dribble, when to hold the ball, when to pass it. Um, I'm very pleased with his performance. I did see him probably a little nervous at first. Let's keep in mind he has only trained 3 times with the team. He doesn't speak the language, which is another factor. So I think little by little he started gaining more confidence. We saw him in charge of all the free kicks, corner kicks. So little by little he did started to take more leadership in the team, and I think that we're going to see more of that because we saw it in the second half. He was more confident, and yeah, I mean, everybody has different opinions, right? I mean, some people maybe had expectations that he was going to do everything on his own, and that's not the case. It's a team effort. But to be the first game with 3 trainings under very different conditions, weather wise, long 16-hour flight on Monday. I can only hope that it's going to keep getting better from here on. But I was very pleased with his performance. Some people are saying he was the best we had. I want to be very careful because I don't want to be biased. Obviously there is some connection there between me and him.
You're an Enrico hype man. It's all good.
But I'm very pleased, and I told him that I like what I saw, and yes, I think he's just gonna keep improving as he gets used to the guys, and he gains more confidence, and there's a lot that goes with being a European born player, and we're not talking like LA, right? I mean, if you're born in LA, and I'm just randomly saying that, but I'm aware that Josh Perez was born in LA, but say you're born in San Jose, just to go a little bit north. You grow up around the Hispanic community and the language and the culture. So there's not a whole lot of culture shock. But when you go from the Netherlands, where I don't know, maybe you can count, like maybe there's 100 Salvadorians living there. I don't know. I'm just making that up. It's a big change, and I think he's gonna start getting used to the culture of the guys, the team, and I think it's just gonna get better from here on. And another factor to mention, he's a U20 player, so most of the team, they're 22 and 23-year olds, and Enrico just turned 20, so he's also one of on the youngest side of our players. So I think, with all that being said, I think he did a good job. I don't think he didn't disappoint me. Obviously, I think he did well, and I'm looking forward to what he can do in the upcoming matches.
I think it was a great debut in the sense that you saw his soccer IQ. Depending on the situation, he seemed to get out of most of the situations in the correct way and making the right decision. It was great seeing that he's an option if El Salvador needs to start playing the long ball, which obviously I think is not in El Salvador's best interest. But if the situation obviously calls for it and you need to make a long clearance in his general direction, you saw he has great ball control. His height, his physicality helps him a lot, where he can evade even, a double mark, if he has two people covering him. You saw him in the box, making the right decisions. He had a couple of good shots. He had some power in it, and others it was just unlucky that the keeper got there. So definitely a player to watch this tournament for El Salvador. And then in general, it was great to see just some of the picardia, how we always talk about Salvadoran soccer in the sense that players tend to be very technical. And I would add to that, there's just some picardia, son vivos, with
Mm.
some of those plays. So that was great to see that style emerge or come out where, in the midfield, there were a couple plays where, they were breaking Canadian ankles left and right. I just think it would be nice to see the midfield be a little more compact, because there were plenty of one-on-one situations where they'd evade the first guy, but then the second defender would come and then they would lose it instead of having an easier option. So Canada did do a great job of basically filling the midfield and shutting plays down. But like you said, the team always had the idea of attacking, very direct. And that's something that we've missed for a while with the senior squad. So that was, something to contrast right there.
Yeah, it was refreshing to watch. I mean, we just talked about Enrico, but I thought Josh Perez did really well. I'm used to seeing Josh play more on the other side, on the right wing, and he does really well when he plays there. But he's left-footed, so he can play at either side. But I think we saw the quality that they bring. I think there's no question about that. And again, just like Enrico, I think, obviously Josh has more experience, more international experience. He's an older player. He's 23. But I think that he's also going to do better, moving forward. I don't think his injury today was that big. I think it was just a muscle cramp. So he should be ready, hopefully, for the next game. But players like Ezequiel Rivas, they seem like players with a lot of potential. Very fast player. But I think that's when the maturity aspect, or the soccer IQ comes in, where you see a player like Enrico, where he may have the technical skills to take on players, but he has a little bit more discernment in terms of when do I do that and when do I not. And players like Ezequiel, he's a very quick player, but sometimes he will do that extra unnecessary play and end up losing the ball and end up losing an entire play. So those little things, that we need to iron out. But yes, there were, Alvarado looked really well when he came in. I don't think Calvillo had much of the ball, but Calvillo is another very good player. He had a few shots.
His presence felt too, like when he stepped up to the big tall Canadian guy. I think
Yes,
that's important.
yes.
and in their own language, which is something we don't see. So it was good to see that. So
He's
props to you,
definitely,
Calvillo, for stepping up to that one fool.
yeah, he's definitely a player with character, Calvillo, and I think that's those, those players are always necessary on the field. Um, so we'll see if he starts next game, but yes, I think it was, again, we lost, obviously. Some people may say, well, it was a crappy game, or I thought overall the team is trying to play an attractive style, and to me that's important. I think it's going to come with time, with more experience, more games under their wing, and they have one already. They kind of got that first game anxiety out, and hopefully for the next one we'll see a more solid team.
And just to fill you in case you're not sure when the next U23s match is, it's on Monday, the 22nd at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it should be televised on TUDN and also Fox Sports 1 in the US. So it was great to see that this tournament's being televised because, it's not it's not an everyday or every year occurrence that you get to watch these types of games without having to use the internet or some pirated feed. So props to TUDN and Fox Sports 1 for covering these games for us. And moving further along with the news from the senior squad, some of the same old type of controversies that come out of El Salvador and the national team. Six members were left off of a list that was given previously due to conflicts in terms of negotiating, their compensation for being called up. Unfortunately, it's something that is a reoccurrence in Salvadoran football. It's something that you'd wish would finally go away, in the sense that there'd be more transparency by all parties and something figured out ahead of time so that there's no need to improvise. Because again, improvisation rarely leads to positive results. My take on it basically is it's unfortunate. I still don't want to side with anybody because I don't have that much information. And despite reports coming out, I still feel like a lot of it is hearsay. This is something that needs to get done behind closed doors. Airing it out to the public is not conducive to anything positive. I think what should be transparent is what the budget is, right? Depending on the competition, like other tournaments do, and then taking it from there. Because I want to assume that the players that end up called up are not there just for the money. Because bottom line is, national team is based off of your performance with your club, where you're supposed to be earning enough to make your living, right, as a professional. But also, we need to step away from the romanticism of the national team and realize that, yes, there's money involved, but what is the financial reality of the Salvadoran national team? What is the money that it brings in? And that is not known. And so I get the efforts to try and get a fair share, get compensated. We've seen moments or we've heard of moments where the federation had issues even paying for food or some of the basic amenities for away games. So things have always been dicey in terms of the financial aspect, but the reality is the budget's not that big, in the sense that I don't think these players are missing out on a huge lump sum. They deserve to be compensated without a doubt. And if it were up to me, the budget would be millions, right? The budget would be able to compete with countries like Mexico in the area or the biggest European nations. But that, unfortunately, is not the case. What's your take on it, Uwe?
I'm with you. I think that in some cases the media tries to take things out of context just to sell clicks, clickbait, and I don't want to enter into controversy. I do think that it's clear that the employment contracts are with the clubs. So at least in my opinion, the comparisons between, you know, a certain profession gets paid to do a job. Um, like I think De La Cruz, uh, Fanáticos Plus said, well, a lawyer gets paid whether he loses or wins a case. Why shouldn't a soccer player be paid equally? And I mean, I understand what he's trying to say, but when it comes to the structure of soccer, football, your employment contract is with your club. Your club is the one paying your wages. Getting called up to the national team should be an honor and a recognition to the great work that you have been doing with your club, not a place where you go and expect to earn money directly. Obviously, you're going to have the potential to earn more money because becoming a national team player opens up the doors to better leagues. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they don't deserve to get bonuses, because every national team in the world offers bonuses per achievements for qualifying to certain rounds, for qualifying to a World Cup. And I think the players are under, they have all the right in the world to ask for that. But I do think that some things have been taken out of context on purpose, I think, by some media outlets. And I just hope the situation gets resolved for the good of our national team. Um, some doors may close for some, but they open for others. Like players like Gerson Mayen being called up, and other players who were not in the original roster. This is their opportunity to show what they have. Some of the players who are part of that group of six were players that were not option for the national team up until the Amaños, and then we end up with no players, and then new players had to emerge. There's opportunities for all, and I do hope that, that the whole thing it's a little bit more transparent from the beginning. I think us as the fans, we don't really need to know those things. Um, I just think internally it will be great for both players and the federation and all parties involved to have a very clear set protocol even before a tournament. Like in my opinion, it will be like if you have a document drafted, right? And a player gets called up to the national team and they get an intro packet, just to give you an example. This is what's expected from you. This is the behavior that we expect as being part of the national team. And this is going to be your bonuses. This is your compensation just for getting called up to the national team. This is the compensation for qualifying to a certain tournament, for scoring goals. And it's clear and it's upfront and it's straightforward. And then there's no questions left in the air to ask and create situations like the one we're having at this time.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's the opposite. What is a mystery is what the budget is, what are the numbers, but the supposed process of negotiation is what's being aired out. And it has to be the opposite way. I mean, one thing that also is another recurring story from El Salvador is just the lack of bargaining power at the hands of the players. Like you said, clubs are the ones that, in theory, that's where you get your salary. But unfortunately, since we're dealing with the smaller market and also teams that do not pay on time and tend to be indebted to their players, thus rendering El Salvador almost as a semi-pro league, that yes, La Selecta does become this concept of, another source of income for these players, or at least to supplement what is already or could be considered a low salary in comparison to other professional leagues. That being said, though, it is curious to me that the players that have been left out all come from Alianza, that is one of the most solvent or stable teams economically. And you'd think that if they are already doing well, that, they wouldn't be as interested in big numbers, coming from La Selecta. I could understand players that, play for the smaller teams, that their salary isn't consistent or very low, and wanting to be compensated for their play and seeing that opportunity through La Selecta. But the truth of the matter is, Alianza is financially the most stable club in El Salvador. So it is interesting that their players are the ones that at least were reported to, right? Allegedly wanting to get the most out of La Selecta. It's just another unfortunate situation that rises out. The last type of distraction that you need leading into this latest qualifying round. So it when you contrast the vibe coming out of, let's say, the U23s, right? How, granted, it's been a short amount of time that they've had together, but it seems that things are clicking, or that's how it's been, reported or managed, that there's more cohesiveness, there's an idea that there's unity in the group. And then we have the senior squad, and it's just this recurring story of money and lack thereof, or the lack of equity in the distribution of it in terms of compensating players. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, in order for that budget to grow, no matter what it is, because we probably won't find out, unfortunately, we got to win something. We got to win games. We got to make it in far into competitions. We have to be a better team to be able to bring in money. And I think, unfortunately for Salvadoran soccer, we get stuck in the short term, and, fighting over a G right now, when if you make it, you have a good next qualifying round, you make it to the octagonal, you are being viewed by, bigger teams, more scouts, you open up more possibilities of playing abroad. A G, 3 Gs, 5 Gs versus making it abroad. Come on, guys. It's the same old story, man, of it's just this tunnel vision. I mean, yes, Alianza is being able to have some success at an international level through the Conca Champions. But even then, I know they've been on a pretty good streak the last couple of years. But who's made it? Who's been signed outside of El Salvador besides Fito? And we know how that went for him. Who has been signed to play abroad? I think it would take Alianza winning the tournament, and even if they won it and made it to the Club World Cup, it would be very very improbable that you would see someone getting picked up and boom, inserted to one of the top leagues in Europe. It just doesn't happen. Please name me like the players from Tigres that have made that jump, or from other Mexican clubs that have played the Club World Cup that have made that jump. It's very few. Very few. And that's that they come from Mexico, which is dealing with the whole other level of infrastructure and money. So again, we're seeing evidence of, I think, some short-sightedness, unfortunately, but hopefully it leads to something positive, whether the players find a way of organizing themselves better, or establishing that protocol like you mentioned, Hugo, or in general, maybe this forces somehow a different tactic or style for the national team, because you're basically replacing that middle core, which is pretty vital. Like, it's been the same core for De Los Goals the second stint. And by removing those guys, something's going to give there. There's a void. I think there's players to fill it in the midfield. But center back wise, we'll see. I don't know.
I just hope it gets resolved. And I mean, I've heard what everybody else has heard. the first press conference, the conference from the Alianza players, then the conference with
can't keep up with the conferences, man.
with Henry. I've heard all the versions, and I hope it gets solved for the good of the team. I think it will be positive. Like you said, we've seen this. This is not news for anyone. If there's something positive that comes out of all of this, is that there's an agreement now, and we don't have the same story when we go to the octagonal, because we're going to the octagonal for sure. We're going.
I love that optimism.
I just want this to be recorded. We're going to the octagonal in September. We'll be there for sure, no doubt about it. So by then, everything's clear. There's an agreement in terms of bonuses and everything the players get for I'm not gonna say we're going to the World Cup, because that would be kind of like going too far ahead, but we are going to the octagonal. That's for sure.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Hugo, the eternal optimist, is at it again. And just to remind everybody, in case you didn't know, the senior squad will be playing Granada on March 25th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We still don't have the stat on what channel, so as soon as we know, we'll let you guys know. There's no better place than Twitter to figure stuff out like that, whether it's like a bootleg link to Canal 4, or maybe Granada will have a TV station that shows that game, so people will pirate that signal.
Or remember that card. Remember that card, that straight card you get whenever you commit an extremely bad foul on someone. You get a card, certain color card. You can always go there and find the games. You can still go to Roja Directa and find some games.
But be careful, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes there'll be some not safe for work pop-up ads. So if you're going to watch with your kids, maybe you shouldn't be using said page. But it will always be endearing in our hearts because it helped us get through so many years of not being able to watch it on cable or, a streaming service. But yes, so we'll let you guys know as soon as we find out. The other match is the 28th, 3 days later, against Montserrat at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then there won't be... Yeah. So hopefully the match at home, things will be normalized. I'm not sure if they're allowing people in the stadium. It'd be
They are in El Salvador. They are.
Okay. So that'll be
25, cool. I think 25 or 30% capacity.
Even better. So hopefully everyone stays safe and makes their presence felt, and they can send nice little recaditos and puteadas to the Grenadine players. But it'll be nice to see some fans back in Cusca because we all miss it. It's something that I was looking forward to in case we made it to hexagonal of getting a flight out there, maybe against the U.S. or Mexico, getting in line hours before the box office opens because you know how they don't do online ticket sales there. But still, there's just something about the experience because, there's no tailgating or anything, but they open up the stadium like 4 or 5 hours before the match. You can get all the food that you want, all the beer that you want. I remember going once against Mexico when we lost 2-1, where Pacheco scored that free kick. That was a really nice goal. But anyway, yeah, we got there hours before the match, got a little schmammered. But since it was so early, everything calmed down. And right before the match, I was perfectly fine to enjoy it. And good time. So hopefully we'll get that again. It'll be nice seeing fans back at Cusca. And then hopefully that trip to Curaçao doesn't take too much out of the guys. But yeah, please, Selecta, let's have some normalcy. I would love some normalcy, but that's almost it goes with it. It goes with it, ladies and gentlemen. That's something that we've talked about here, is that certain level of masochism that is involved with following La Selecta and, all the other youth teams. But I think just the aspect of having several matches all combined within, like a 2 week span is very exciting. We have so much to look forward to. Hopefully we survive it and good comes from it. Cause I've been wearing this blue kit for a while. How about you, Ugo? Like, you've been a fan for a bit. So
36 years.
I think it would take so much. I don't know what it would take for me to stop being a fan. And like we already survived the world. Like we didn't even get to live through the World Cup, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. And we survived that Manos era and we're still here. So yes, there's a certain level of that masochism that will still be left to be tested. But enjoy it. I think the main thing is let's cling on to the positive vibes that the U23s are giving us. I mean, it's very exciting to see those players evolve, and it's the first time I'm seeing a lot of them. So it's cool seeing, the possibilities of who's going to make it from a squad like this to the senior squad, especially with the senior squad being in somewhat of not a complete disarray, but there's some instability. And I think the right group needs to come together. I think they need to find a way of negotiating, like we said earlier, and just, handling business, which is wrecking these islands. We need to wreck them. We need to make it into the octagonal. Please, please. Anyway, I think we're going to close out soon, right, Ugo?
Yep.
All right. Well, on that note, I want to thank everybody who's liked our videos. We had a whole bunch of new subscribers and likes and comments throughout the last 2 weeks on our little hiatus. We didn't want to bombard you with the same old, but here we are anyway. But anyway, thank you so much. I wrote on my Twitter that I was in SoCal over the week, got some good recommendations for soccer shops. So I appreciate everyone that responded. Hopefully, you never know if they'll become a sponsor in the future, but it was definitely cool checking out the SoCal soccer shop vibes. It's a little different in NorCal, not as much of a Salvi presence, so you don't get to see some of that Umbro gear in shops, but we definitely, with my brother, we caught it at one of the recommendations, and then another one that I've been buying stuff from. But in the future, who knows? There'll be sponsors I can tell you where to go, and I might even do it anyway without any money. But again, thank you so much for following us, liking us, interacting with us, because that's what it's all about. We'll try and do more vids, right? We'll like maybe after every match. Are you down for that? Should we just do that?
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll do that, though. They won't be that long because we don't want to bore you guys. But we'll try and do a calm down after every match, break it down, and interact with us. Let us know if you agree with us or you're hating on my thoughts. I won't take it personal. Like, people already commented on stuff. It's all good. But anyway, on that note, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys probably on Monday, right, Hugo? You done?
Yeah, Monday after the 3-1 win against Honduras.
Oof, you heard it here first. Again from the Eternal Optimist. All right, everybody, take it easy.